Would you want your daughter doing that?
Probably not, no.
That was the moment it all cracked. A question so simple, so direct, it stopped the noise in the room. Jack Doherty, the YouTube prankster turned kick streamer turned alleged OnlyFans tycoon, suddenly speechless. And sitting across from him, none other than George Janko, podcast host, content creator, and outspoken Christian who just lit the match under a dumpster full of controversy. Let's rewind for a second, because if you only know Jack Doherty from his chaotic YouTube videos or his outrageous kick streams, you might not realize just how deep this rabbit hole goes. On the surface, he's the flashy millionaire kid with the McLaren, the mansion, and the endless stream of parties. But behind the viral stunts and influencer drama is a business model that has made people seriously question his morals. And now, finally, someone challenged him to his face. This wasn't some Twitter beef or TikTok reaction. This was a real conversation, one-on-one, face-to-face, streamed for the entire world. George Janko invited Jack on his podcast not to roast him, not to cancel him, but to confront him in a way no one else had the guts to.
I noticed that you manage girls. Is that true or no?
And when the topic turned to OnlyFans, specifically Jack's role in managing multiple girls on the platform, things got very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And managing in their OnlyFans?
Yeah. And like kind of all around too, but like, yeah, I mean.
Yes, they make money on OnlyFans. And yes, he takes a cut. But George, to his credit, didn't let that slide.
No disrespect. This is a version of pimping. You're pimping these girls out. You don't think that's attacking your heart in any way?
No, because at the end of the day, they all, they already like want to do what they're doing. And it's just like, I just actually make the money doing it. Because there are so many girls that actually do OnlyFans and make, $0 and stuff. And they're doing it all for what, But it's like every girl I work with makes like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month and millions of dollars a year,
This wasn't some YouTube prank. This was real life, real people, real consequences. Let's get the facts straight. Jack Doherty doesn't just help girls with social media. He openly markets himself as a manager for OnlyFans creators. And according to him, he's helped multiple girls make millions of dollars on the platform. Now, in isolation, that might sound like a win. But the devil is in the details. See, the business of OnlyFans is complex. Yes, some creators make serious money, but it's also a platform that's notorious for exploiting young women, especially those who've just turned 18, fresh out of high school, looking for fast cash and fame. That's where the criticism against Jack starts to sharpen. Multiple internet commentators, including Pegasus, Turkey Tom, and others, have pointed out how Jack seems to always be around girls who are barely legal, and how conveniently many of them become OnlyFans creators right after they start hanging out with him. Coincidence? George didn't think so.
Do you think that it's like affecting your heart that you're pushing these women in a industry, in a realm that is not gonna?
I wouldn't say I'm pushing them to like do it, and I don't think it's not ending well for them. Like,
did your girl do it right or no?
Yeah.
Was she doing nudes?
Like not like showing her actually, like not like actually showing her.
So like that in its general, like how did that make you feel? That like your heart was like, that's my girl, but she's also doing those pictures. Was she doing that before she met you?
Nah. We were together for like 6 months before we started any of that.
Okay, so like let's just stay there. Like how did that feel with you? Like were you like no jealousy in your heart of like, hey, that's my
like it was like it was like on like I don't know, like we both were. Well, it wasn't
You just think of it as a business.
Yeah.
This is the same justification you hear from dealers, from brokers, from every morally gray entrepreneur since the dawn of time. They were already going to do it. I just made it profitable. But George wasn't buying it. He pressed harder, bringing up Jack's ex-girlfriend, McKinley Richardson, another OnlyFans model Jack helped manage while they were dating. The internet's already seen this breakup play out like a soap opera. Jack publicly crying over her moving on to other streamers. But George focused on one thing. Did Jack feel anything emotionally about his own girlfriend selling herself online? Did that make you jealous? Jack shrugged. It was just business. That right there might have been the most honest thing he said the entire interview. Not love, not respect, not loyalty, just business. It paints a bigger picture, one that many critics have been outlining for months. Jack Doherty treats people like products. And when the product stops selling, he moves on. But what happens when you become the product? That's the question George tried and failed to get Jack to ask himself. As the interview dragged on, the tone shifted from awkward to outright combative. George Janko, usually measured and respectful in interviews, seemed visibly disturbed by Jack's responses. But he wasn't yelling. He wasn't grandstanding. He was doing something far more dangerous to Jack's image, staying calm and asking the hard questions.
So then how could the mother of your daughter, for example, your father set a good example for you. You modeled after your father. He went from building roofs after roofs, putting a roof above your head. And now, God willing, whatever the relationship between you guys happen, it's in God's will. But like, say you marry her. You wouldn't be proud of the fact that your wife was doing that, because then your daughter's going to do that. So if you don't want your daughter to do that.
Unless you make enough money to where your daughter doesn't have to do that. I mean, that's the whole goal with all this.
And just like that, the mask slipped. It was a rare moment of vulnerability, not for Jack, but for his entire empire. Because that one question exposed something bigger than any prank stream or breakup drama ever could. A fundamental contradiction at the heart of his brand. Jack wants to be the boss, the mogul, the genius behind the camera. But when faced with the moral implications of his choices, he taps out. And worse, he admits he wouldn't want those same choices for his own family.
Would you want your daughter doing that?
Probably not, no.
That's not just hypocrisy. That's exploitation with a smile. George brought receipts too. He referenced interviews, online clips, even Jack's own statements, where he proudly talks about how much money his girls are making. But when confronted with the human cost, the emotional toll, the family trauma, the public humiliation, Jack had no answers. He just kept saying the same thing. I'm helping them. But here's the truth. Help without boundaries isn't help. It's manipulation. And that's exactly what George was trying to highlight. Then came the part that made the internet explode. George brought up faith. Now, for context, George Janko is famously a devout Christian, and not in a performative way. He's built his brand around spirituality, morality, and holding people accountable, not just for views, but for values. So when he asked Jack,
Believe in God or the universe? Like, what do you believe in?
Yeah, I believe in God.
Okay, so if you really believed in God, do you think that he's going to bless you with a peaceful heart when you're moving in this direction? Dude, you're collecting money from girls that are doing things that you know you wouldn't let your daughter do. So why would you think that your father, who also is their father, why do you think he would bless you if you're continuing to do this?
it was a trap, a truth trap. Because if Jack claims to believe in God, in morality, in heaven and hell, in consequences, then how does he reconcile that with monetizing the sexual exploitation of young women?
You already have enough. You already have enough that you can say, hey guys, you know what? Let's scratch the contract. You guys go do what you guys need to do. If you want to continue or you don't continue. But these are blood money, and I don't want my hands to be a part of it anymore. I mean, that right there will make you in a direction of peace. And then from there, if
That
you
was
make,
just stressing the out. I'll be like, God damn, like all these bills are adding up. Like,
The contradiction was glaring, and it wasn't just about religion. It was about principle. You can't claim faith and live off what you admit is sin. You can't preach freedom while profiting off bondage. You can't talk about being a role model while encouraging millions of followers to reduce women to dollar signs. And yet, that's exactly what Jack does, daily. It was clear that Jack came into this interview expecting another podcast promo. Maybe a few spicy questions, maybe some laughs. But what he got was something he wasn't prepared for. Accountability, and he crumbled. He wasn't angry, he wasn't defiant, he was lost. Because when stripped of the sports cars, the bikini parties, the viral clips, and the teenage bravado, Jack Doherty is just a kid who built an empire on things he can't morally defend. And now, someone finally made him look in the mirror. As the podcast continued to circulate, so did the outrage. But this wasn't your typical internet backlash. This was a reckoning. Because now, people weren't just mad at Jack Doherty. They were starting to look deeper into what he actually does to make his money. The truth? Jack isn't just a YouTuber or a streamer. He's a digital pimp. That might sound harsh, but look at the facts. His revenue isn't just coming from ad views or merch drops. It comes from managing a network of girls on OnlyFans, many of whom are young, vulnerable, and searching for direction. Jack steps in, offers clout, promises wealth, and in exchange, he gets a cut of everything they earn. It's a business model built on intimacy, on exposure, on selling access to bodies. And while Jack says he's helping them grow their brand, what he's really doing is growing his own wallet off their most private moments. This isn't speculation. Jack himself has bragged about how much his girls make and how much he profits from their accounts. He's posted earnings. He's tweeted screenshots. He's made TikToks about how easy it is to turn a regular girl into a top 1% earner in the adult content space. But the math is simple. If she's making $1 million, he's taking a percentage. And unlike managers in traditional industries, Jack's role often crosses boundaries. He lives with these women. He's romantically involved with some of them. He controls the image, the marketing, the direction, all while pretending it's just content. But content with consent doesn't mean content without consequences. The fallout from the podcast interview hit hard, but it wasn't just the comments or the reposts that sparked the next wave. It was Jack's response. He went live, and it wasn't a typical chill stream. This was Jack in damage control mode, or at least his version of it. Shirtless in his LA mansion, surrounded by his crew and a few girls, Jack ranted for over an hour about haters, jealous men, and how George Janko doesn't understand the game. But what really stood out wasn't the bravado, it was the fear. Jack kept circling back to one thing, that people were trying to cancel him for being successful, that no one understood how hard he worked, that managing OnlyFans girls was no different than managing YouTube channels or record labels. It's business, he said. It's all business. But the comments weren't buying it, because here's what the audience saw. A young man, rich beyond measure, surrounded by half-naked women, yelling into a webcam about morality while dismissing every criticism as hate. It wasn't empowering. It wasn't edgy. It was hollow. And for the first time in his career, Jack wasn't leading the narrative. He was reacting to it. That's a dangerous position for someone like him. Because Jack's brand thrives on control, on spectacle, on always being 10 steps ahead. But in that live stream, he wasn't the puppet master. He was the puppet, dancing for clicks, spinning the story, hoping the wave would pass. But it didn't. In fact, the wave was only getting bigger. In the midst of the firestorm, a new voice emerged. And this time, it wasn't a podcast host or a YouTube commentator. It was someone from inside Jack's circle, one of the girls who had been living with him. One of the faces fans had seen in his content. One of the names he'd bragged about blowing up on OnlyFans. She walked away. Not quietly either. She didn't just ghost Jack and move on. She made a video. A raw, unfiltered upload where she explained why she left, what it was really like inside the content house, and how Jack's so-called support had turned into something much darker. She described the constant pressure to perform, not just sexually on OnlyFans, but socially on camera. How every moment was curated, how disagreements were suppressed, and how the fear of losing clout or being cut off kept many girls silent. You think you're getting a manager, she said. But what you're really getting is a boss who sleeps next to you, watches your earnings, and reminds you every day that you wouldn't be anything without him. Her story wasn't shocking because it was outrageous. It was shocking because it was predictable. It confirmed what many had suspected. That Jack's empire wasn't just built on content. It was built on coercion disguised as collaboration. And that for all his talk about empowerment, the power was never shared. She didn't name names, and she didn't attack anyone directly. But her timing, right after the Janko podcast, made it clear. She was done being silent. And once her video started spreading, others began to speak too. Jack has always seen his audience as loyal. Rabidly loyal. And for most of his career, he's been right. His fans, mostly young guys drawn to the fast cars, fast money, and faster women, have defended him like a cult defends its leader. But now, something was shifting. For the first time, Jack's base was fractured. You had the diehards still defending every move, still spamming W-Jack under every post, still calling the podcast a hit piece and claiming jealousy was the root of all criticism. But then there were the doubters. Longtime fans who started asking real questions. Why does every girl he works with end up crying on stream? Why does he film every relationship like it's a business deal? Is this really what success looks like? And perhaps the most damning. If he's such a genius entrepreneur, why does all his content revolve around women? This wasn't cancel culture. This was curiosity turning into criticism. Because eventually, even the most loyal followers start to wonder if the ride is worth it, especially when the driver seems more interested in control than connection. Jack tried to combat this wave the only way he knew how, with more content. He dropped vlogs, he posted TikToks, he doubled down on alpha rhetoric and threw in a few clickbait thumbnails for good measure. But none of it hit the same. The algorithm still served his videos. The views were still high. But the vibe? Different, tired, defensive. Even his signature flexes, like throwing stacks of cash or hosting mansion parties, began to feel like reruns. Like a magician performing the same trick for an audience that already knows how it works. Because the truth was setting in. Jack didn't just have followers anymore. He had witnesses. While Jack Doherty painted himself as a liberator of women, claiming he helped them achieve financial freedom, the fine print told another story. Behind the camera, there were contracts, real legal documents, NDA-style clauses, revenue splits, creative control. Several former OnlyFans creators who had worked with Jack began to hint at the paperwork they had signed when joining his house. And while most didn't, or couldn't, release the full details due to those same NDAs, patterns started to emerge in the whispers and leaked DMs. In one alleged conversation shared anonymously through a drama channel, a creator described a 70-30 split in Jack's favor. Another said she was promised marketing support and content shoots, but ended up being pushed into creating explicit content more frequently than she wanted to. It was like he needed you to keep upping the ante, or he'd move on to the next girl. There were also allegations that Jack retained control of login credentials or access to bank-linked accounts, a tactic not unheard of in exploitative management setups across the influencer world. Jack, for his part, denied any wrongdoing. He claimed he never forced anyone, never took more than what was agreed upon, and always helped people grow their platforms. "I make people rich," he said in one stream. "That's what I do. If you can't handle it, you're free to leave." But critics argued the issue wasn't freedom, it was power. Because how free are you, really, when your income, clout, housing, and brand are all tangled up in one man's empire? The deeper people dug, the more it felt like Jack had built a digital feudal system. He was the king, and every girl in the house? A vassal. On paper, they were independent. In practice, they weren't going anywhere unless they wanted to give up everything. There's one word that Jack Doherty uses more than any other to describe himself: hustler. It's the backbone of his identity. The TikTok grind set, the YouTube uploads, the monetized relationships, the girls, the parties, the money flying through the air in thumbnail after thumbnail. But when you step back, the hustle starts to look like a mirage. Jack wasn't building a product. He wasn't developing an app or running a legitimate talent agency. He was flipping human attention, turning people, mostly women, into content and content into cash. What he was selling wasn't business acumen, it was access. Access to a lifestyle, to him. And as more insiders came forward, a darker truth took shape. The hustle was just a high-speed carousel. Girls came in, got boosted, got pressured, got exhausted, and got replaced. The strategy? Saturate the platform with loud, chaotic, click-worthy moments. Manufacture drama. Milk every relationship until it breaks. Wash, rinse, repeat. But that's not a business model. It's a meat grinder. And increasingly, audiences started to see through it. Some of the most viral clips weren't even Jack's own uploads anymore. They were reaction videos, exposing the toxicity behind the grind. Podcasts began devoting full episodes to analyzing his manipulations. Even former collaborators, YouTubers who once partied at his house, started keeping their distance. The illusion was breaking. Because for all Jack's talk of being a young mogul, his empire didn't look like entrepreneurship. It looked like exploitation dressed up as entertainment. And for the first time, people were finally saying it out loud. Jack Doherty built his brand on brightness, flashy cars, beautiful women, wild stunts, and an endless stream of content. But behind the glow of the LED panels and mansion skylines lies a much dimmer truth. When the cameras cut, what's left? Was it all really about freedom, or was it about control? Were the women empowered, or just repackaged into thumbnails? Was Jack Doherty a genius entrepreneur, or just another middleman exploiting attention while it was cheap? As the backlash grows louder, former collaborators speak out, and as public sentiment shifts, Jack stands at a crossroads. He can keep spinning the same carousel of chaos, louder, faster, meaner.
I really do think it starts with setting these women free.
Setting them free is crazy. That sounds fucking insane. Setting them free. Oh yes, here you guys go. I'm so sorry for holding you multi-millionaires captive, as if I'm such a bad person. They're not being held captive. They all love this shit.
I'm not saying you're holding them captive.
They're like, oh yes, like they love money. All these girls love money. They love clout. Like they love this shit.
But why don't you be the guy that teaches them that that's not what happiness is about?
I don't know. You tell them that, bro. They love it. Like I'm telling you, like
I'm trying to tell their landlord. How I picture your life is a pilot just flying head down, and then like, yo, bro, pull over, and you're like, nah, I got a parachute. And I'm like, no, dude, like we gotta land this. You're like, no, I got a parachute. It's fine. And you're just like fast. That's what I see, bro.
And then right before we hit the ground, I'm going right back up. And you see, I told you. And then
yeah, but how many more times are you gonna do that until you're exhausted?
That's what life's
and
about.
old?
That's what life's about.
Or he can face the mirror he's been dodging. Because when you're making millions off morality, eventually morality knocks back. And if Jack doesn't change course, the empire he built on dopamine, drama, and OnlyFans deals may just collapse under its own weight. And when that happens, it won't be a content house. It'll be a cautionary tale. This wasn't just a story about Jack Doherty. This was a story about what happens when clout becomes currency and people become the product. And the truth? It always cashes out.